Fresties, welcome back to Wattpad Wednesdays. Today I am answering a tough question. So, should you delete your story? Instinctively, I want to say no, but the more I think about this question, a lot of different factors come into play, and I realized that there are definitely some instances where the answer is yes, and instances where I have actually done that in the past myself. So it would be kind of hypocritical for me to just come right out the gate and say, no, don't delete your story, because I don't want you to, but sometimes for the benefit of you and even for other people, you should. So let's talk about those reasons. So I think one of the most obvious reasons that you should delete your story is if you want to do really major editing on characters and plot. Obviously, if you're going through this process, you probably don't want people to start reading when you're in the middle of fixing all this, because it would be sort of jarring if chapters 1 through 7 a character is acting a certain way, and then in chapter 8, suddenly they just jump into this completely different personality because you haven't gotten around to editing chapter 8 yet. Taking down your story if you want to work on stuff like this, or like a really integral plot point, if it's a mystery and you didn't tie all the pieces together and you want to go back and do that, this sort of stuff is a great reason to delete your story and repost it once your edits are all done. It will put you more at ease when it comes to editing because you won't feel this huge need to rush and get it all done in like the same day so that you're not confusing any potentially new readers. And at the same time, it is much more beneficial for readers because they are not going to have the chance to get confused or get this bad impression of your writing. I would say it is definitely not necessary to delete your story, but I mean, you can if you want to. When it comes to grammatical editing and line editing, this sort of stuff is really not going to affect readers that much on a chapter by chapter basis. When I edited my story, May the Best X Win, and I went through and added a whole bunch of stuff for one of my characters, and I just really refined my writing and edited it so that it was I love saying that, edited it. I made it so it was a lot better, but I didn't feel the need to delete the whole story and take it down and then re-upload it later because I wasn't really changing that much. I was adding a lot, but I wasn't switching around plot points in a way that would confuse readers if they started reading at one date and then got through it while I was still in the midst of editing. And another thing that I did that I think really helped me not feel the need to delete it was that I posted a little author's note at the beginning and just told people, hey, if you're new to this story or if you're a rereader, I will be doing edits from this date to this date. So if you want to come back and just start reading when it's all done and edited, feel free to do that. So that is another great way to prevent yourself from deleting your story for just these little minimal edits. Ooh, room temperature, sort of cold tea. Another reason that I think actually makes it a good idea to delete your story is if you have just simply lost passion for that project. Sometimes instead of trying to hold on for readers' sake or just because you're sad to admit that you don't want to continue with this story anymore, it's better just to let it go and delete it. And if you want to come back later and work on it, then you can. My sleeve is unraveled. If you want to come back later and revive the story and start writing it again, maybe you just need a little while to work on other projects, you can always do that. It's not gone to the void forever once you delete it or unpublish it. I know that some writers, and I have done this in the past as well, will try to avoid deleting a story by putting it on hold. I would say that this can work if it's for a very short amount of time, but if you really feel like you have just lost the drive for this story, I would seriously recommend just unpublishing it unless you really feel like you just need a little period of rejuvenation for you to start writing and updating again. Because readers coming to your profile and seeing that you have one or more stories on hold is not always the best impression. And also, if you have readers who are really invested in that story and you keep them on hold for months and months and months, they are gonna get frustrated, they are gonna get annoyed, and honestly, they would probably rather just prefer that you unpublished it and said, hey, I'm not feeling this, maybe I'll come back to it in the future, than to lead them on and make them think, okay, it's just on hold, they're coming back soon, I don't have to wait that long, because chances are they might be waiting for a very long time. So again, it's totally up to you which you prefer, just to unpublish or to put something on hold, but I would say that unpublishing is not as bad or as final as you may feel like it is. This is the most common reason why I have unpublished stories in the past. I just simply fell out of love with the project and didn't want to leave it up for new readers to come and find it only to be disappointed. My third reason is also one that I have personally succumbed to, and it's probably the saddest reason that I'm sad that I even have to talk about it and that it even exists. But it's that if hate comments are getting to be like too severe for you and you just cannot handle seeing all the negativity, it is a perfectly reasonable reason for you to delete your story. If negative comments are seriously having an effect on your well-being or upsetting you, you can eliminate them by unpublishing. You do not owe anybody that story. You do not have to keep it up. You can just keep it for yourself for the rest of eternity. If readers can't respect it and they can't handle it, then they don't deserve to have it. My personal instance of this was with a fan fiction that I posted not on my main account but on like a secret other account that I had, and the female OC that I had made for as a romantic interest for the main male character of the fan fiction was just absolutely like obliterated to pieces. Like, wow. I did not know that people could hate a fictional character that much sometimes. And other people were really into the story. They really liked it. They understood the character flaws that this character had, and that, you know, she wasn't a bad person just because she had some negative stuff going on in her life. Okay, this is turning into a bit of a rant rather than an advice video. But, you know, some people just don't get that. I think it's especially common in fan fiction because people have a very strong attachment to these characters, and a lot of times they are in love with that character themselves and they don't think that anybody could be good enough to be in a relationship with this character. So if you try to put someone with that character, they are gonna rip them to pieces if they are not like this perfect human being, which obviously you cannot write a story about a perfect human being. There's no plot. They gotta have some issues. But I digress. Negative comments suck and they really hurt to get. And if it is becoming too much for you, even if you have people who really like the story, it's sad for them and it's sad for you as well, but sometimes you just have to take it down. I will say that when I did this, I did not regret it at all. I am sad that the people who liked it can't go back and read it, but for me, it was the best decision that I could have made. I'm probably going to be making a video on how to deal with hate comments very soon because I think that it is important and I don't think it gets talked about enough in the Wattpad community. For the most part, people are really nice on Wattpad, but sometimes you just get a bad apple who doesn't know basic decency. So anyway, the fourth reason that I think you maybe should delete your story is if you took on too much at once. I have also done this in the past, for sure. There was a time when I tried to write more than one story at once and it was very difficult. I would not recommend doing that. I would recommend sticking to one story at a time, but if you're the type of person who likes to take on multiple projects, you have to figure out with yourself how many projects can you reasonably take on at one time while still being consistent and not losing your train of thought for each individual story. You have to make that decision for yourself, and really only you can know. You could be someone who maybe you can write 5 stories at once. If you can, I'm a little jelly. For me, it's one, and you know, maybe I can think a little bit about the next project in the background, but I gotta be focused. So if you have started like 7 stories on your profile and you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? It's totally okay for you to unpublish 6 or 5 of those stories and just focus on 1 or 2. And you can always come back. Like I said before, you can always start writing those stories again in the future. And if you are totally sure that you're gonna come back to those stories, you can let readers know. But I will say be careful with that, because sometimes you really think that you're going to come back to a project one day and it just turns out that by the time that you're at a place where you can get back to that project, you don't really want to anymore. So, you know, don't make promises that you won't keep, but you can tell people, you know, you can probably expect me to upload this story again in the future, yada yada, that sort of a thing. So those are 4 reasons that I think are totally reasonable for deleting your story. Let me know if you guys have ever deleted a story in the past. I have deleted many many stories in the past for a plethora of different reasons. But yeah, I think there's sort of a taboo about deleting your story and unpublishing it, and I don't think that there really should be. You know, sometimes we just make a mistake or we just need a little more time, and that is totally okay. So don't feel guilty if you want to delete your story. Do not feel obligated to your readers to continue it, because at the end of the day, this is your passion, your hobby, and you should be doing it for fun. If you're not enjoying writing a story, or if you are just totally overwhelmed by it, there is no reason why you cannot take a step back and maybe come back to it in the future. So as always, thanks so much for watching. I hope this video helped, and I hope that I will see you in the next Wattpad Wednesday. Why was that so awkward? Ooh, my face is hurting from talking so much.